So let's dive on in to Daniel Ricciardo leaving McLaren, and well, hopefully this will work. We're going to start by watching and going through his little video that he posted on his Twitter account. So let's switch to that, and there it is. Okay, so let's rock and roll with this. Let's see how this goes.
Hey everyone, wanted to share some news. It's not great, bittersweet for sure, but I think it's best you hear it from me. 2022 will be my last year with McLaren. Just obviously we put in a lot of effort on both sides, but it just hasn't worked the way we wanted. So the team's decided to make a change for next year, and so we had a lot.
So the first thing that he speaks about there is the team have decided to make this change, and I find that quite interesting, because I think if there wasn't other alternatives for the team to be pursuing, which of course there always would be, because this is Formula One at the end of the day, and contracts are not really worth the paper that they're written on. Obviously the team have come to him and said, look, we want to make a change, it's clearly not working anymore, and obviously they feel it's no longer worth continuing to put that effort in.
A lot of discussions, but in the end we mutually agreed that it was the right thing for both of us. I will continue to do the rest of this year, absolutely. I'll continue to give it my all. So that's that, I think, for the future, what lies ahead. I'm not sure yet. But we'll see. I look back on this time with McLaren. I look back.
So he's not sure yet on his future, and his body language tells us as much, because you can see it in his eyes, and you can see that for me the smile is forced. It's not a natural smile that's coming from Daniel Ricciardo here, which is a shame. So well liked amongst fans and within the paddock, usually such a happy, chirpy character, but yet it's not worked out. And he said it just hasn't worked the way we wanted it. So you can't beat around the bush. It hasn't worked out the way that they wanted it to. So, this was inevitable, I'd guess. Well, I guess it was inevitable, wasn't it?
With a smile, I learned a lot about myself. I think things that will help me for the next step in my career, but I think just in general in life. I think from a results point of view, for sure, to consistently get the results in that form that I was after, wasn't always there. It made some weekends tough. I felt those, absolutely. But I also, have many happy memories of my time at the team, and I think about Monza. I think about standing on the top step. I think about, bringing the team their first win since 2012.
There you see it. That's why you can tell the difference, because I watched this through earlier and just had a look at the way he was acting. Talking about Monza, it brings a real easy smile to his face, and that's obvious. Of course it would. But you can just see the difference from earlier when he was trying to smile through the pain, essentially, of the disappointment. And now you can see, even in this frozen frame, that the smile is more natural. It's more real, I'd say.
That sort of stuff was awesome. To see the smile on everyone's faces, to just be in that moment, that's something I'll never forget. So, there's a lot of good stuff to take from this as well. The sport, I still love it. This hasn't affected any of that. Still have that fire in me, that belief in my belly that I can do this at the highest level. All that stuff's still there. Just want to say appreciate everyone's support through the highs, lows, everything in between. This isn't it for me, but we'll see what lies ahead. Just want to say appreciate you.
Well, there we have it. that is Daniel Ricciardo and what he has to say on his exit from McLaren. And you can, as I said, you can see it's hurting him. And obviously he's a competitive person. He wants to win. He wants to be successful. He's a winner of 8 Grand Prix, of course, one of which is for McLaren. And there was a few things that really sort of struck home with me. He said, I've learned a lot about myself. I learned things that will help me in the next step of my career. And of course, you know, it's important to keep learning about yourself. One of the things that has made Lewis Hamilton so great is the fact that he's able to keep not necessarily reinventing himself, but adding things to his arsenal. If you compare the driver that came into the sport in 2007, he was very fast, very raw though. You look now, some 15 years later, he's arguably the most complete driver the sport has ever seen. And of course, Daniel has been going through issues of the brake sensitivity, and the feel on the brakes has been completely different in the McLaren, and the way that the McLaren handles has been tough for him to get to grips with. And I suppose when you go through those struggles, you learn how you're going to cope with adversity, how you respond to certain situations, which in a competitive sport, that is incredibly important, because it's not always going to go your way. So you need to know how to drag yourself away from that negativity, how you can then go and process that, how you move forward and get over it. And obviously certain situations take more time to get over and they're more difficult to overcome. But what Ricciardo is saying there is that there is still a next step. This isn't him done, and he said it explicitly. This isn't it for me. I still love the sport. So if you take that into consideration, then surely he's staying in Formula One. And maybe he doesn't quite know where he's going yet. We know he's had some contact with Gunther Steiner. There's assumedly a seat still available at Alpine. Now, if the contract recognition board side with Oscar Piastri, Piastri will, I think it's maybe the worst kept secret in Formula One right now, he will end up with McLaren. Because if he wasn't going to end up in the McLaren, then surely he would have just gone along with Alpine's announcement that he was being promoted. So what alternatives does that leave Daniel Ricciardo? Well, you've got Williams, you've got Haas, there is still a seat technically at Alfa Romeo, but I think Zhou Guanyu will end up there. I can really see Daniel Ricciardo going back to Alpine because there's a new management structure there. They're a little bit all over the place, but they still need, and this is the important thing, they still need a top-line driver. And I know that might annoy some fans of Esteban Ocon. And look, I think Ocon is a good driver. I think he is capable, but I don't think he has that absolute raw speed of, you know, a Lewis Hamilton or a Fernando Alonso, and on his day a Daniel Ricciardo, because Ricciardo has pulled out some excellent qualifying laps. You know, look at his speed around Monaco in the Red Bull. Okay, that was a very particular car for that circuit, and it really worked. So it is horses for courses, so to speak. But he can't be choosy, because these seats are going to get snapped up, and there's talk of Mick Schumacher leaving the Ferrari Driver Academy and taking the seat at Alpine, which could open a door at Haas. And that's not the sort of dead-end seat it looked sort of 12 months ago, because you couldn't really see where the positive trajectory was coming for that team. But now with Kevin Magnussen back in the team and the car being competitive, Mick Schumacher has obviously turned a corner, and his performances are evidently doing enough to have suitors away from Haas and Ferrari, then perhaps a Ricciardo Magnussen ex-Renault reject, if you want to call it that, pairing, that could be quite interesting. And on the days where the Haas car is good, you've got two drivers who can absolutely do the job. And I think that would be, if Ricciardo doesn't choose Alpine, I think that would be the next best bet, because Williams are a little bit of flux at the moment, because they had a real good opportunity last season to continue building in the right. They had a good opportunity this season to continue building on what they did last season, but they've fallen back down the pecking order. And I know, change of regulations and whatnot, and that can happen to any team. But we've seen Williams fall to the back before, and it's taken them a while to get away from there. Obviously, there's no room at the end at Aston Martin. Alfa Romeo, I can't see them looking outside of Bottas and Zhou. So Ricciardo's F1 options are very limited unless he takes a sabbatical. But it's very difficult to get back into Formula One once you step out of it, unless like a Piastri or Esteban Ocon, or I'm trying to think of somebody else who took a step out for it. Well, Fernando Alonso. Unless you have ties to a team in terms of reserve role, junior driver, or you're a double world champion and you like hopping around midfield teams, it's very difficult to get back in once you step out. There's talk of maybe going to IndyCar, but again, I don't think there's much room there. Not knowing too much about their driver market. Well, we all know what McLaren are up to. They're trying to sign every driver under the sun, as they're doing the same in IndyCar. They're in a dispute with Alex Palou. Well, not with Alex Palou, but about Alex Palou. Where they do seem to have their house in order is Formula E, where they're taking over what is the Mercedes EQ team. They signed Rene Rast this morning. They didn't sign him this morning. They announced that signing this morning. So for Daniel, it's going to be, obviously choose carefully, but choose quickly, because these seats are going to disappear. Now, let me know in the chat where you think Daniel Ricciardo is going to end up. If he's going to end up in Formula One at all, if he's going to move to IndyCar or Formula E, Extreme E, I don't know. Something to do with toothpaste commercials, where he gets to show off his lovely smile and those big teeth. So who knows? We'll wait and see.